Number 9, keep relationships high in your life. Okay, this is the sensitive one. So I want to preface this by I don't want to upset you, and I'm not going to tell you how to run your life. I'm just going to give you some examples, and I apologize in advance if this is upsetting. A number of years ago, I had a BM come to see me in Poland, and he said, I need to talk to you for a minute. And I said, yep, come on in. So he comes in, he said, I'm tendering my resignation, I need to quit. My work-life balance is out of whack, and it's going to cost me my marriage. And I always had a rule that when you came with a personal problem, I dropped everything. And so I said, wow, drop everything. And we were pretty close, and I even knew his spouse well. And I was able to really penetrate this case because of the closeness of me and the individual, and also the closeness of his wife to my wife. And we really got into it. When you got into the nitty-gritty of it, what had happened is he had let the whole relationship go south. And he made a lot of common mistakes. And I'll kind of walk you through it and how it went. This is a very traditional Polish marriage, starts young. You basically, in Poland, they typically marry their first boyfriend or girlfriend. They met at 16, high school sweethearts. Okay, she remembers when they had their dreams in front of them. The wall had just come down, communism was over, everything, the streets were going to be paved in gold. They had dreams and visions. Okay, and everything was going to be perfect, and their life was going to be perfect, and this was a dream. She married her high school sweetheart, started to have kids right away. He got a job with the big American multinational P&G, and everything was going along great. Okay, a few things happen. They go cross out of their 20s into their 30s. Okay, a few kilos here and there. Okay, she's at home with the kids, and she always remembered her dad coming home and being kind of like the old guy sitting in the chair, and smoking his pipe or falling asleep. Always, like the older guys get, the more they have to stick their hand in their underwear. I don't, why, but they kind of sleep, like Al Bundy, like, and this guy's coming home, and she wants to talk to him. She spends all day with like a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and she just wants to talk to somebody. And he'd come home and he would grab the paper right away, and they had bought an Easy Boy recliner, and he'd grab the paper and one hand would slip into his underwear, okay? And before you know it, he's there snoring away out. She'd wake him for dinner. He'd come over and eat dinner, but he didn't really want to talk much about the stuff. He'd kind of even still try to read the paper again. And then he would kind of like crash. And this went on for months and months at a time. And he had lost his romance and the whole bit. And then one morning he's getting up, he's putting his tie on. And this was when we were still in the formal dress code. And she says, come over here and give me a big kiss before you go to work. He goes, I can't, I'm running late for the meeting, I gotta go. And he walks out. Number 10, leveraging technology. This is a big time saver. I'm not the smartest person on this, but I'll give you a couple examples. In Geneva, it's big to have a nice car in Geneva and drive into the office. Since every company in the world has moved to Geneva, the traffic is out of control. My commute there 6 months ago when I lived there, a 10-kilometer commute, 6 miles, was over an hour to the office because there's just no freeways and it's all 2-lane stuff and one-way, weird setup. And when I was there, what you do is you'd sit in traffic for an hour each way, and then you get in the office, you rush around to clear your email, and because you're in Europe and your bosses are in the US, like David or Charlie was here, I would always come in the morning to 40 emails. And so you try to clear your emails from the overnight US stuff before your first meeting. And I noticed that the buses run in Geneva perfectly, and I say, here's what I'm going to do. I want to get one of those BlackBerries, and I'm going to sit on the bus, which is actually a very nice vehicle. It's chauffeur-driven and about $400,000. So it's better than these people in their BMWs because I'm in a more expensive vehicle that someone drives. And so I sit in the bus, and I do all my email on the bus. I would open it up right when I would get on the bus, and I would get to work in about an hour and 10 minutes with the changeover. So I lost 10 minutes. But I'd clear all my email. I'd walk right into the office, and I'm ready to roll. Then on the way home at night, I would do all my phone calls to the US and do a few more emails. And it was amazing. The minute I started doing that, I picked up about an hour a day, overnight. Number 11 is probably the personal favorite of a majority of people who write to me. Now, you need to have goals in your life outside of Proctor. If this is all that defines you, as we talked about, it's going to be very painful. Now, what I found works is not a personal mission statement and a personal OGSM. I've seen too many personal mission statements where the people say these mom and apple pie statements like, I want to have a fulfilling life. No kidding. So what was the option? To have an unfulfilling life? There's no choice there. I want to get really practical. Lou Holtz. Who knows who Lou Holtz is? A number of years ago, Lou Holtz was on The Tonight Show, and they asked him, what's the secret to your success? And he said, this was in 1991. And he said, the secret to my success is I had a life going nowhere at age 33, and I wrote down a list of 100 things I wanted to do before I died. And what shocked me was I knew I had 50 more years to live, and I couldn't even come up with more than 20 things. So it took me a while to get to 100. And then I said, I got 100 things, I'm just going to start knocking off a couple every year. And I had things in there like, I want to make $1 million, I want to be on the cover of a magazine, I want to coach a national champion. And one by one, I started to do all of it. And by the time he was 60-something, everybody say, what an amazing, fulfilling life you've had. I saw that show that night, and I had my list done by 1992. And it took me about a year to get 100. And I had the same problem he did, which was I was in my 20s, and I couldn't think of more than 25 things to do. That's pretty sad. The average age in this room is probably in its late 30s. Let's just roughly say that you all have about 50 years left to live, but you can't even think up 50 things to do before you die. You can't even think of one thing a year. It takes time. Everybody has the obvious, I want to write a book, and I want to do this and that, but then you stop it. I've never met anybody who's had an easy time coming up with 100. The only guy that did was a guy in Geneva who had 100 in a day, and then he showed me his list, and I said, that's cheating. And his list was 100 women. And I said, no, you can have one of the 100 that says, I want to date 100 women, but you can't list them by name. Okay, that's cheating. Everybody else has struggled with this. It's the best exercise that you can do in the world, is put down, and it's fun to develop the list. I'll give you lots of examples. This is one of the best things you can do on an airplane. When I was flying here, I'm sitting next to a guy, and people get bored on airplane. This is a 12-hour flight, from Tokyo to Detroit, and you're sitting on the flight, and you've watched the movies you want to watch, and you've read the magazine you want to watch, and so the guy is to the point of boredom that he's reading the vomit bag. Now, they're not really that interesting. It just kind of says vomit here and fold over and hand to the flight attendant. It's not like a really complex sentence. And I look over and I'm saying, dude, write your list. This is the best thing you can do on an airplane. You take the thing out, I keep it in my wallet, I take it out, and I add to it when I come across something. Now, it took me about a year to get to 100. And it took a while to put stuff on there. I had the classic things. But it's changed my whole life, and changed my whole life with my wife. She has her list. We have a crossover of about 60%. The rest are independent. On the things that I want to do, she doesn't want to. We support each other. And all the years in my life are measured by what I've done off my list, not P&G results.